So in this video, we'll be talking about some fantasy football sleepers in 2020. So I don't consider a sleeper someone rounds like 3 to 5. I'm thinking more of like outside the top 80, round 7 and above basically. So these won't be the most common names in the world, but still there's some players we should recognize on this list. I have a bunch of players on here, probably like 10 to 15. I don't have the exact number, and a couple guys that are deeper sleepers later in the video. If you didn't check out my league winners video for fantasy football, go ahead and check that out. Hopefully you enjoy this video, and let's get into it. At number 1, we have Marvin Jones. So in 2019, Jones finished as the wide receiver 27. He had 62 catches, 779 yards, and 9 touchdowns in only 13 games. So Jones is a bit inconsistent week to week. I can admit that as a person that had him last year, but he's the type of guy that can single-handedly win you a week. There was a week last year where he had 4 touchdowns in one game. There was a week where he had 2 touchdowns in one game. So this is the type of guy as a wide receiver 3 that can pop off and maybe single-handedly win you a week. So of course, Kenny Galladay's there. They get Matthew Stafford back, which is huge. I mean, last year it was like David Blau and Jeff Driscoll. That's an upgrade there for sure. So he has that trust and connection with Stafford. He'll throw him a 50-50 ball here and there. He's a great red zone target, 9 touchdowns last year. And this is a team that, the Lions should be playing from behind a lot of garbage time, which is always good for fantasy owners when you're on the good side of it. And he's being drafted as the 38th wide receiver right now, which in my opinion is too late. I would take advantage of that value for sure. As I said, he finished 27th last year in wide receiver rankings for fantasy football. Now you can get him at 38. It's basically a contract year for him. It is a contract year for him, so he'll be motivated personally to put up good numbers, and I think buying Marvin Jones this year in the late rounds is a good idea. Next is another wide receiver. It's Diontae Johnson for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's supposed to be their wide receiver too. So last year I took a shot on the Steelers wide receiver too. It was Dante Moncrief, and that was a complete disaster. I will own up to that one any day, so my bad on that one. But last year on 92 targets, Johnson put up 59 receptions, 680 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So this is a guy that possesses a ton of talent in my opinion, really good route runner, steady hands, and definitely is a playmaker out there. So last year he had Mason Rudolph, Devlin Hodges. They only had a game and a half of Ben Roethlisberger. Now you get a healthy Roethlisberger back presumably, and if he is back 100%, this is a guy that can pop off and be like a top 25 wide receiver type. So Pittsburgh's had a history of developing these good wide receivers, especially like Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think Diontae Johnson can be that next guy for sure. So he knows how to get open, he can make big plays, and right now he's the 42nd wide receiver off the board in fantasy. I just think that's too late for him, honestly. He has the upside to be in the top 25. As I said, going 42 seems a bit too late to me. So Johnson's a guy I definitely want to get my hands on. I think he's going somewhat early on this list as compared to other guys. He's probably like a 7th, 8th, maybe 9th round pick. But honestly, I feel like the upside is worth it. So I'm going to take a shot on the talent of a Diontae Johnson. Next, we have a tight end. It's Hayden Hurst of the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons actually traded a 2nd-round pick for this guy and a 5th rounder, I believe. So they gave up some pretty decent assets. Of course, the Falcons lost Austin Hooper to the Browns, so they have a bunch of targets basically at tight end that need to be made up, and Hayden Hurst can be that guy. So they gave up a lot of picks for him. I think a 2nd-round pick is a lot, especially in today's NFL. A lot of good 2nd-round talent now. And in 2018, he was a 1st-round pick for the Baltimore Ravens, I think 25th overall. So we know that Julio and their 2nd receiver, who I can't remember right now, Calvin Ridley, they're going to get theirs. We know that. But their tight end is always important in a Matt Ryan offense, going back to the days of Tony Gonzalez way back when. Hayden Hurst is a guy that can be good. He had a 76% catch percentage last year, which is really good, on 39 targets. They weren't the furthest targets downfield, but Hayden Hurst also has a lot of speed for a tight end that's 6'5" and 250. He's pretty fast. I think can make some big plays for this offense, and he'll get his targets. If he's getting his targets from a good quarterback like Matt Ryan in an offense that possesses 2 really good wide receivers in Julio and Ridley, then the attention might be off of a guy like Hayden Hurst, and if he gets his 6 to 8 targets per game, I think he can put up some pretty good numbers. I'm sure he won't be like a top 5 tight end, but I'm talking maybe 5 to 10, something like that, 6 to 10. So I think it's worth it. Right now he's the 13th tight end off the board. I think has top 8 upside or so. So I think taking a shot on him in the later rounds is probably a good idea. Next, we have a wide receiver, Jamison Crowder for the Jets, and the case for Jamison Crowder is a pretty easy one. The guy gets a lot of receptions. He has a connection with Sam Darnold. There's not a bunch of competition there for targets. They have Chris Herndon. They have Brashad Perriman. They released Quincy Enunwa, so the targets will be there for Jamison Crowder, we assume, from the slot. So last year Crowder put up 78 receptions, 833 yards, 6 touchdowns, and that was with Sam Darnold being out for 3 games and their replacement Trevor Siemian and whoever the other guy was, something Falk. They were not good at all. So I think Jamison Crowder's a guy that honestly can probably get over 80 receptions and close to 1,000 yards, somewhere between 4 and 6 touchdowns. And right now he's going very late in drafts. He is the 59th receiver off the board. Seems very late. I wouldn't really want him more in a standard league, but if you're getting points for receptions, I think Jamison Crowder is a great wide receiver 3 to have. He's still pretty young. I think 27 years old. He looks old, but he's 27 years old. So I think in PPR leagues, very worth taking a guy like Jamison Crowder. Next, we have running back for the Patriots, Damien Harris. So last year, Harris was a 3rd-round pick for New England, and he was on a lot of fantasy radars last year, but I think had a preseason injury or maybe an injury right before the season. Took him a while to get going, and obviously a rookie for Bill Belichick. They're not going to play unless they're just completely flawless, and Damien Harris did not have the best luck on his side last year. But honestly, I'm not the biggest Sony Michel guy. Rex Burkhead is whatever. James White, we know his role, and I think Damien Harris is a guy who's going very late in drafts right now. I don't know if I wrote down where he's going. Right now he's running back number 52, so you can get him at the very end of drafts, and he's a good runner. I mean, he runs between the tackles as well as anybody, it seems like. He's a powerful runner, can break off some big plays. He was more of a, he split carries with Josh Jacobs, I believe, in college, so it's not like he had a monster workload, but I think based on his body type, he's definitely capable of it. And as I said before, I just don't trust Sony Michel. This is a team that probably wants to run the ball a lot. They now have a mobile quarterback in Cam Newton that'll definitely help the running back's job. So as I said, the competition there isn't great. I forgot about Lamar Miller as well. They signed him, but he's on the PUP list, so it's not like he's actually going to be there, at least for the first few weeks of the year, we think. So it seems like right now Harris would be a nice investment. He could be the type of guy to maybe be a starter if Michel and Lamar Miller and all these other guys are not in there, and if he's the only back left on the roster and gets an opportunity, then maybe he turns into a viable starter for the Patriots. Next, we have a tight end. It's Noah Fant of the Denver Broncos. So Fant was the 20th overall pick in the NFL draft last year, and for a rookie tight end, we know rookie tight ends usually don't produce too much, but he was actually pretty impressive. So he had 40 receptions on 66 targets, 562 yards, and only 3 touchdowns. Hopefully, he'll get more than that. But Fant is an athletic freak. If you look at his player profiler, his athleticism numbers are just off the charts. He's like 95th percentile or better, it seems like, in everything. So he's a ridiculous athlete. His best comparable is George Kittle. I mean, not saying he'll be that good, but still, that's awesome. So the Broncos do have a bunch of competition for targets, which is definitely concerning. They have Cortland Sutton, the 2 rookies, and Hamler and Judy. So there are some good players out there, and of course they have some good running backs as well. So the competition for targets is there, but Noah Fant should be on the field a lot, and he's right now the tight end number 11 off the board, and I think has the upside to be top 3. So I like Drew Lock a lot. I like the Broncos offense a lot. I think Pat Shurmur knows how to get the most out of his quarterbacks, and if we're going to get the most out of Drew Lock, I think we can get the most out of Noah Fant. So I think Fant is just a guy that can definitely explode. There's another tight end later I like a lot, and I think one out of those 2 guys, maybe even both, will turn into awesome options this year at tight end. Fant is the earlier option, so honestly, my plan at tight end this year is to go Fant and then go the other guy, get both of them, and hope one of them breaks out. But Noah Fant is the number 1 sleeper I want at tight end this year. Next, we have Golden Tate from my New York Giants. So Tate, of course, is a slot receiver for them. He was suspended 4 games last year, the first 4 games. Played in 11 games. He put up 49 receptions, 676 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And his 16-game pace last year, if he played in every game, was 71 receptions, 983 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So I don't think the 8 touchdowns will happen, but the receptions and yardage totals are definitely realistic in my opinion. Tate has a track record of playing in basically 15, 16 games every year. Obviously, being suspended sucked, but I think this year he'll play majority of the games, hopefully 16. So in Jason Garrett's offense, the slot receiver seems to do well most of the time. Think back to Cole Beasley, even Randall Cobb had 800-something yards last year for them. So seems like a pretty safe bet that Golden Tate's going to get a good amount of targets. And their quarterback, Daniel Jones, the best thing about Jones is his short accuracy, and that's exactly the type of routes that Golden Tate's going to run, is over the middle of the field and short, and that's where Daniel Jones can accelerate for sure. So the Giants are not going to be they're probably going to be more of a conservative offense. They won't take that many deep shots, in my opinion. I think working the ball to Golden Tate, Evan Engram, guys like that is going to be their move, and I think if Tate can finish with 80 catches and 1,000 yards, then he'll be a high-end wide receiver 3, a low-end number 2, and can definitely return some great value. Next, we have wide receiver Anthony Miller for the Bears. So Anthony Miller, talent-wise, I think is a really good player. He's overshadowed by Allen Robinson for sure, but he's a great player in his own sense. And you also have Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback, so we're not sure who the quarterback is. It could be Mitch, it could be Nick Foles. I prefer Nick Foles, but we'll have to wait and see. But Miller is going to run in the slot most of the time. That's what he did last year, it seemed like. And he had some really good games last year, honestly. It wasn't consistent, but overall he was pretty effective in 2019. So Miller is entering his year 3 season, which is usually the big year for breakout wide receivers if they tend to break out. It's going to happen in year 3. So his numbers are trending in the right direction. He was all right 2 years ago, got better last year, and maybe this is the year he puts everything together. Could be like maybe a Chris Godwin type of guy. He won't put up numbers that good, in my opinion, because the offense is not as pass happy as the Buccaneers was, but at the same time, if he gets the opportunity and gets the targets, I think Anthony Miller can be a really good investment this year. So as I said, we don't know who the quarterback is. This is a guy that was drawing some Antonio Brown comparisons coming out of college, which is crazy, but he is super talented, and right now is wide receiver number 56 off the board, so it's a really good investment here. He's a sleeper pick for sure, going very late, and I say why not when taking Anthony Miller. Next, we have the other tight end I was talking about during Noah Fant's little segment before, but it's Jonnu Smith. So right now, Smith is the tight end number 21, which I had to double check because it feels like it makes no sense. But he's a guy that's so athletic. He has top 10 upside for sure. He's playing with a quarterback now in Ryan Tannehill, who was just tremendous last year. He was the number 2 quarterback, I believe, from the time he started to week 17. We'll get into him later, honestly. He's the next guy on the list, so I spoiled that one. But for Jonnu Smith, he will get more playing time. Delaney Walker is now gone, and last year produced 439 yards and 3 touchdowns on 44 targets. Obviously, we hope for more targets. Maybe it can be closer to that 80, maybe 85 range or something around there. I think 44 targets is not enough. If he only gets 44 again, then probably not worth the investment, but I'm hoping that he gets more. So Smith's player profiler is amazing. Just like Noah Fant, he's a guy that ranks over the 80th percentile in 4 out of the 5 categories, so he is a really, really good athlete. And my personal strategy, as I said, for this year is taking Noah Fant and then following it up with Jonnu Smith a few rounds later. I feel like, personally, one of those guys will turn into a top 5 tight end, maybe even top 10. I'm just being generous there. So they have the potential to do it. I think Fant has top 3 potential. I think Jonnu Smith can be top 6 potential maybe at tight end. So if he gets a full year out of Tannehill, there's no more Marcus Mariota, he'll put up some better numbers in my opinion, and hopefully he gets more targets. So next is Ryan Tannehill, as I spoiled before. So from week 7 when he took over to week 17, Tannehill was the number 2 quarterback in fantasy, only trailing Lamar Jackson, who kind of had a good year last year. So Tannehill's he's the 19th quarterback right now taken off the board, and the disrespect is real here. So I know it wasn't a full season, but when you are the quarterback 2 for a 10-week stretch, I mean, that's a pretty good sample size, honestly. So in 9 out of his 11 starts last year, he threw for 2 or more touchdowns. So based on standard fantasy scoring, that's 8 points right there without even going for the other stats, not including the yards or the rushing yards or anything like that. So, I mean, people think Tannehill's garbage. He wasn't that bad, honestly, in the first few years of Miami. I know Adam Gase came there. He got injured and things didn't go too well. There was the Jay Cutler years. So I understand, he didn't have the best reputation. But early in his career, Tannehill wasn't that bad, so he has talent. So I don't expect him to be the quarterback 2 for an entire season in 2020, but a top 12 finish is definitely possible in my mind. So not sure why he's going quarterback 19. If you're in a 2 quarterback league, this can be like your huge sleeper at the second quarterback position that can return great value. And he has a pretty good group of weapons. AJ Brown, we talked about Jonnu Smith and his athleticism. There's Corey Davis, there's Adam Humphries in the slot. I know that Derrick Henry does not offer much as a receiver, but when defenses stack the box to stop him, it makes Tannehill's job easier, and Derrick Henry ain't going anywhere. So I think Tannehill will once again have a pretty effective year. It won't be the second best quarterback in fantasy, but I do think top 12 is definitely possible. Next, we have a current Panthers receiver and former Jet, Robby Anderson. So last year, Anderson got a lot of hype because he finished off the 2018 season really well. But right now, he's the 51st wide receiver off the board, which seems kind of crazy. So I'll admit he has to compete with Curtis Samuel for the wide receiver 2 spot over there. But if he wins out that job, which I feel like he will because they paid him $20 million over 2 years, it's a good amount of money. Obviously, DJ Moore is the number one guy there, but if Anderson beats out Curtis Samuel, then you're talking about a guy that's probably going to get somewhere from 6 to 8 targets per game. And we know Robby Anderson has a lot of big play upside. He can be a wide receiver 2 for a team. He did it for the Jets last year as a wide receiver 1 and was still pretty good. So he's scored at least 5 touchdowns in each of his past 3 seasons, and he's had over 750 yards in 3 of those seasons as well. So he's put up some good, consistent numbers. He hasn't broke out necessarily yet, but Robby Anderson is more than just a deep ball guy. He knows how to run routes now. He's improved on that throughout his NFL career, and I know Teddy Bridgewater isn't going to go deep too many times, but if they can find some one-on-one matchups where they're doubling DJ Moore and have Robby Anderson one-on-one, there's going to be opportunities to find him deep, and I think Robby Anderson, while he might be an inconsistent option, can put up some good numbers by the end of the year. Next is another Patriots running back, James White. So for some reason, we seem to do this every year with James White, where he'll put up like a running back 2 season, then disrespect him the next year. So White had 56 receptions in each season since 2016. So right there is a built-in 50-plus reception floor, which is great. And in PPR leagues, he is a perfect running back 2. Maybe this year more of a high-end 3, but if you can get James White on your bench, which is where he's going, he's more of a bench player at this point, that's a great running back 3 in my opinion. So I'm aware Tom Brady is gone, things are different, but Cam Newton throws to his running backs. Look at Christian McCaffrey's reception totals in 2017, 2018. So the guy can do it. And White's had a great history of health. He was the running back 22 in half PPR leagues last year, and the guy is now going at running back number 43. So I have no idea how you finish at 22, then go to 43. As I said, I know Brady's gone, but Cam Newton knows how to dump the ball to a running back. So just as I said about Robert Woods in my last fantasy video, he's not the sexiest option with a high ceiling, but you're going to get more than likely a low end running back 2 for a mid-round pick, which is great value in my opinion. So the Pats backfield's not anything great. I talked about Damien Harris and his opportunity before. You have an injured Sony Michel, an injured Lamar Miller. You have the average Rex Burkhead. I feel like his ceiling can be pretty high because in 2018, James White finished as the running back number 8, so he's done it before. So for getting this guy in whatever round it is, 7, 8, great investment in my opinion. And James White, year after year, continues to put up running back 2 numbers, but continues to get disrespected, so don't fall into that trap once again. And lastly, I added a couple guys that I consider deeper sleepers. So the first one is Preston Williams for the Dolphins, a wide receiver. So Devontae Parker gets all the hype there, but Preston Williams is not too far off in my opinion. So Williams was super talented in college, had a great junior year. He went undrafted in 2019 due to some legal troubles. I know that's probably in his past, and maybe it could happen again, but still, he's on the field and playing right now. He showed last year in the preseason he can be a legit outside receiver in this league, and in 2019, he had a game in the preseason, 4 catches, 97 yards against the Falcons, and then in 8 games last year in the regular season, 32 catches, 428 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Not bad for an undrafted rookie. So he did tear his ACL in November. Obviously, that's not good, but he's going to be the receiver opposite of Devontae Parker in most cases. And if you double his numbers from last year, once again as an undrafted rookie, that's 64 catches, 856 yards, and 6 touchdowns. This guy is 6'5", he's 218 pounds, and as a junior at Colorado State, as I mentioned before, put up an insane line of 96 catches, 1,300 yards, and 14 touchdowns. So he's not just a 6'5" receiver that is only good because of his size. He's actually a talented football player. Go ahead and watch his highlights. It's pretty intriguing. So in the last few rounds of my drafts, he's definitely going to go in my Q&A section. Hopefully I'll be able to draft him late, but I think this is a dart throw that can turn into a really good possible wide receiver too if everything breaks right this year. And the last guy here, I know he's a boring pick. I know it seems like he's probably 35 years old, but it's Randall Cobb. So surprisingly, Cobb's only 30 years old. I guess he entered the league pretty young for the Packers. I feel like he's been around since 2011. But he could be useful in deeper leagues, especially PPR leagues. So he signed for 3 years, $27 million with the Texans. I don't really agree with the signing, but hey, he's there. He got his money. It's basically a 2-year guaranteed deal, and he's coming off a season where he had 55 catches for 828 yards with the Cowboys in 2019. So I know the Cowboys had the leading passer, I believe, or maybe a top 2 passer in Dak Prescott, a bunch of yards there, but the Texans, they throw the ball as well, and Randall Cobb's going to be the slot guy there. So they have an offense that has Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller and Kenny Stills, I believe, all speedsters. Who's going to be the underneath guy? It's not going to be Tate because he can't stay healthy. It's probably going to be Randall Cobb, and you have a great quarterback in Deshaun Watson. If they need an underneath option to move the chains, I mean, it could be Randall Cobb. Of course, they have Duke Johnson, who I like. I mean, maybe he can move the chains here and there. David Johnson's a good receiving running back, but I expect Randall Cobb in the slot to get his looks. I think he can get 6, 7, 8 targets a week, and he might stack up the catches and end the year with 70, 80 receptions. It is possible. I don't expect him to be great. He won't be anything more than a wide receiver 3, but if you're in a deeper 12, 14, 16 team league, I think Randall Cobb might be that low-key useful player that can help your team. So it is what it is. If you want to take Cobb, he could help. But that'll do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Leave in the comments your fantasy sleepers for this season. I don't want to see guys in like the top 5 rounds. Let's try and go a little deep here, but hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.